doing something new today here at Whiskey and Whit. I am launching a new series that I am so excited about. These are going to be called my Whit Tip Workshops, and so many of you have asked me to go slower on projects, dive deeper in, and share more tips and tricks. So that's exactly what this is going to be. You guys will have to let me know if you like this format, because I had such a fun time putting everything together, sharing all of my knowledge that I've learned crafting over the years. Today's project is going to be a fun one to kick everything off. So come on in and let's get started. My first Whit Tip workshop. In today's workshop, we are going to be doing this beautiful burn technique on an unfinished wood crate. In my recent craft room organization video, so many of you guys asked about this crate, where I got it, was it a DIY? And I thought this would be really fun to dive in and show you guys how to wood burn. The other great thing is, while I'm talking how to make it with your Cricut today, you can also use torch paste with regular stencils. So you can definitely use this. There isn't a Cricut required. I'm just going to dive into that too, because I do have a lot of tips and tricks on making your own stencils with a Cricut. Now let's talk supplies. You are going to need an unfinished wood blank. The great news is so many craft stores, as well as your regular big box stores, have unfinished wood pieces. I'm talking Target, Walmart. You just want to make sure you have something that is unfinished, because we are going to be heating it up with a high temp heat gun, and we want to make sure that we are not releasing any chemicals from the sealant. So we're going to seal after. We're also going to stain or paint after, if that's what you want to do. Step one is going to be to measure our crate so we know exactly what size we need to make our stencil. My first tip to making sure that you get good measurements is get yourself a mini tape measure. This is a game changer, because I can just get it out, measure not only my Cricut stuff, a ton of craft projects, but it really comes in handy with the Cricut, because I can say, okay, this is the size of decal I need. I go right to my computer, I enter it, and it's good to go. We could measure straight across, but I don't want my design to go from edge to edge. We want to give it a little bit of breathing room around the outside. I like to give myself usually about an inch, or maybe even a little more, but rule of thumb is an inch around the outside. So if you want an inch on either side, that would bring it down to 13. So that's a good place to start. Put that measurement in the center and say, okay, does 1 inch feel good to me? And some people might like it to cover more. Other people might like more breathing room. So it's totally up to you. Just keep that in mind while you're measuring. Across, we're going to do 13 because we did the breathing room around the outside. Top to bottom, we're going to do about 4 inches tall. So now let's head over to my computer and I'll show you how to get the design sized for your specific box. I am going to click New Project and Blank Canvas, and then I'm going to go up here to the left to upload the file. Upload image, and then you are going to browse your computer or device. And the best part about the techniques I'm sharing today is you can use it with any SVG, including the tons of free ones over in my free file library. That's where this one will be. So be sure to head over to whiskeyandwhit.com and get your password for the free file library. I've got so many options over there. All the details for that are down in the description. Then it's an SVG, so it is going to add as a cut image, and you're going to hit upload. Then you can take it, add it to your canvas, and then we are going to size it to that 13 by 4 size that we talked about earlier. So the quickest way I like to do that is adding a shape. It's a really easy way to visually see the guide. So you're going to go to Shapes, add a square, unlock the aspect ratio up here because we need it to be a rectangle instead of a square. And we did 13 inches wide by 4 inches tall. Once that is sized, you can lock it again. And I personally like to change it to a lighter color so I can see the text. So you can just do that by clicking this little color square up here. And then we are going to arrange and send to back. Then what we can do is take the file and add it over to the top of this. And it fits right within the area of what we wanted. Now, if you're using the same box as me, it's going to fit perfect because I designed this file with the box in mind. However, let's say your box is shorter than mine. You can click this again. Let's say we're working with 11 by 6. So say maybe this is the side of your box. What you can do is take the file and you can ungroup it. So you see all of these little bits over here of my SVG on the right hand side. You can hit this button up here, which is ungroup, and then it's going to ungroup these pieces. You may have to do it a couple times. When you see this up here, that means it's grouped. So you can go ahead and ungroup it. So say you're putting this on a sign, a large crate, whatever. Now everything is its own chunk. So then what I can do, we can scooch our square for the time being. I'm going to select all of these pieces down here. So we've got all of our letters in Sterling, Illinois. And you can then regroup them like that to mess around with it, or you can hit attach. The biggest thing that I find that frustrates people is the group option here in Design Space is strictly for designing. It has nothing to do with how it's going to cut. So right now with everything ungrouped and not attached, all these letters are going to cut individually. And sometimes if you have an SVG and you see it all discombobulated, it can get really frustrating. The attach function down here in the right, the little paperclip, attach is what has implications on the cutting. Ta-da! So if you have an SVG that's giving you a hard time, remember you gotta attach it, and that is how it's all going to work. You can select these different pieces, and if you want to group them, then you can bring it over here and size it yourself. So say this part is a little too wide, but you want property to be bigger. You can then kind of mess with this to fit your aspect ratio. Then once you get it where you want it, you can get rid of your square, select everything, and hit attach. So I've got everything attached for my size, 13 by 4, and I'm going to cut it on a mat just because of the vinyl that I have, but you can edit those based on if you're using the matless cutting feature, if you have one of those machines that do that. So everything's good to go here. You don't have to mirror anything, but what I like to do is grab my file here and scooch it off of the edges just a little bit. That is going to give you a little bit more open space, especially because it's going to be a stencil and you'll see when we weed it, but you can just grab it, scooch it, and you can also use this little arrow up here to change the direction. So if you want to have it be horizontal and it'll fit that way, you can use that little tool up there to do it. It's going to search for our machine, so you want to make sure your machine is plugged in and powered on. So for the vinyl that I'm using, I'm just going to go with the vinyl option here, but if you are using smart vinyl or a stencil vinyl, make sure you find that in your materials and select that. Or if you have a machine with a dial, make sure you turn the dial to that. And we're going to head over to get the mat and machine ready to go. So now it's time to cut our stencils. So I am going to rub up my Cricut. I also have a 12 by 24 standard grip mat. You can also use the smaller mats if you are doing the wood burning on a smaller surface. But because my box is a little bit larger, I'm going to need a little bit over 12 inches. So it's going to require me to have the bigger mat. I like to have a big one on hand just for projects like this. That can help you get the most out of the size of machine. When it comes to stencil material, I like to use just regular permanent vinyl. This is Oracle 651, so the permanent vinyl, and I think this gives you the best adhesion to your wood surface. I have used a ton of different kinds of stencil, and with this torch paste, you want to make sure it's fully down so you get crisp, clean lines, and I found the easiest way to do that is permanent vinyl. So if you have stencil vinyl on hand, you can use it, but I find it gets underneath the little bubble areas, and that always frustrates me, so we're going to go with this to eliminate that headache. I'm needing about 13 inches, so I'm kind of just laying it out. I'm going to trim it to the size that I need. You can also use a slice cut, but scissors work great. Then I'm going to apply it starting in the one corner. And then first I press it down with my hands. Something else I like to have on hand when I am cutting in general is a brayer. This is the Cricut tool, but there are off-brand ones on Amazon as well. It has this little roller. So then you can use it to press it down and make sure it's adhered to your mat. And that is going to give you a cleaner cut. Now that my mat is ready to go, I'm just going to insert the corners underneath these two little white pieces here. And then we're going to hit the blinking light to have it go in. Now, as you can see, the mat is hanging off the front and the back of my table. If you're working on a small table like this, like I am, before I have it cut, I'm going to go ahead and gently turn this so that there is essentially a runway on the front and the back of my table to hold up that vinyl. And again, that's going to help with the cut. So it's going to cut long ways so that I've got table behind and in front. And now it's time to cut. So if you have a blinking button on your machine, you can hit that to start it, Or if you have a buttonless machine like a Joy, you can go ahead and do that in your app or computer to get it cutting.
And then once it's done, it will stop. It'll tell us on the computer or tablet, and then we are going to eject it.
One of the biggest things I wish that I would have known when I started using my Cricut is how to get the vinyl off the mat without hurting it. So usually you want to just grab the end and peel it off, but that's not what you want to do with Cricut. You want to flip it over, and then you're going to start to peel back this mat. Hold the corner with your hand, work your hand towards the direction that you're peeling, and that is going to help you get a nice piece of vinyl off of your mat. I'm going to take my scissors and trim off the excess vinyl. Now here is where my stencil stops, so I'm giving myself a little bit of breathing room there. And honestly, if that's one thing you take away from this with any of your projects, give yourself a little breathing room. You can always trim it down, but if you trim it too close, you can't add any vinyl back on. So keep that in mind. So now I have my weeding tool. You can get these from Cricut directly, or honestly the Dollar Tree ones. They're knockoffs, but they work just as well. You just want to make sure your point is sharp so that you can pick up these little pieces. Now, if you've done vinyl decals before, you typically remove all of the outside stuff to reveal your letters. Well, for a stencil, we're going to do the exact opposite. So let me show you. This is the S in Stanley. So I'm going to grab the actual S and peel it up. And now you can see it better with that white background. So this is where I want my torch paste to go and where I'm going to wood burn. So I want to remove all the insides instead of the outside excess vinyl. The other thing you want to make sure that you keep in mind as you're doing this is the letter D right here in Builder's Hardware. You want to make sure that that inner part of the D remains, or you're going to have just a blob. So as you go through, especially if you haven't weeded for stencils before, take your time, just pop them through, and you can carefully peel your vinyl back. I'm going to finish weeding this, and then we'll be ready to apply it to our box.
Now that we've got our stencil weeded out, we're going to need to get it from the backer sheet onto our box. So what I like to use, especially for stencils, is this paper transfer tape. I really like it because it has enough stick to it that it's going to pick up your vinyl, but when you go to apply it to your box, it's not so sticky that your stencil is not going to stick to the box. Sometimes, especially if you use Cricut branded transfer tape, it's too sticky, and then this is never going to stick to your box because it's never going to let go of the grip. So the paper transfer tape really helps with that. So now I'm going to take my weeding tool and I'm going to pull this transfer tape and use this to really stick it down so that I'm not going to leave any pieces of my stencil behind when I go to transfer it. Trim it down.
Another quick Whit tip before you apply it to your box is if you have a surface that is a little rough, I suggest sanding it with a 220 grit sandpaper and then wiping it off with a clean rag. That will help your stencil adhere to it instead of having all those little flecks kind of pop off as you're trying to apply a sticky stencil.
So what I like to do is trim just a little bit closer and along a straight line. So then that way that's going to help me align it to the bottom of the box. This is where that breathing room comes in handy because then you can always trim off if you need to, but if you cut too much then you can't really add any more. So we're going to flip it over, remove that backer sheet, and this will be true for any vinyl you use, whether it's the kind I'm using or the stencil vinyl. And before I stick it all the way down, in comes that handy dandy little tape measure. I like to measure from the side. We're looking at a little over 1 inch over here. Needs to go left a little bit. And here, this is just transfer tape, so I can stick this down so it stays without sticking the vinyl down. That is nice to have a little bit of an overhang. Another thing you can do is pick it up off the table and hold it up eye level, which I'll do right now. That helps with, is it straight, a different angle? It's kind of like getting a second opinion. Now I think it is where I want it, so I'm going to grab that squeegee again. This is just a big one from Cricut. They also sell the smaller ones, but I like this big one. It's well loved, as you can tell, but it helps me scrape larger projects like this. Now to apply, I like to go down the center first to make sure you don't get any bubbles. So right here in the center, and then push out to one side from that center point. And then push out again. Then we're going to really rub this down. And then I'm going to start to peel from the corner. So what I like to do is get your corner like folded over and then just start to pull it at an angle. So you see how it's a triangle and it's just getting a little bit bigger. Now, as you expose more area, you can use both fingers. But as you can see, that transfer tape is light enough that it's going to let it go. And if your transfer tape is too sticky, you'll know that because this corner is going to come up with this paper. It's not going to let it go. It's going to seem like you didn't even stick it down or there's no adhesive to the vinyl. So my suggestion is to get a lower tack transfer tape if that is giving you a hard time. And we're doing this in real time so I can show you. Sometimes on my channel I will do a time lapse just because we don't have all the time in the world for videos. But here, I want you to see how slowly and carefully I'm doing this, especially for the sake of getting that really good adhesion for the stencil. Now I'm just going to do a quick look and make sure that there aren't any too crazy of bubbles here. We're going to take our little jar of torch paste, and it might seem small, but I promise you this lasts you forever because you don't need a whole lot. You want to do a thin coat. And it is this orange paste. So this helps because you can definitely see where you've put it on your wood. So that helps with, application and things. Now down here, I just want to be safe, so I'm going to add a little bit of painter's tape anywhere I feel like it's a little close to the edge, just so then that way I don't have to worry about getting any torch paste just right over here, because then you'll have just a weird blotchy line. Apply it right here so it's not over any of my stencil, but it is over the wood that could potentially be compromised. So to apply this, you're going to need a couple things, at least in the way that I do it. So I have my torch paste. I like these little plasticky scraper tools because the torch paste will dry up and you can scrape it right off and reuse it. Torch paste has their own scrapers, but I just like this one because it's bigger surface area, and if I'm doing a bigger project, it makes it easier. And then I just have this little Dollar Tree craft stick because I like to use this to get it out of the jar because you can't really scoop it with this. So I'm going to take my little stick and I'm going to grab some torch paste. And I'm just going to place it in an area where my stencil is covering it, but I can kind of put some up there so that I can work with it. Now, if you've done screen printing before, this might feel a little similar because you're going to take this and essentially squeegee it across. I'll usually get a little bit on here and then start by pulling it across. Now, as you go to apply it, you're going to see that the orange tinge is going on the wood, and that helps you know, okay, I've covered the areas I need to cover, or I need to go back and get that dot, whatever. And it's just like I am squeegeeing on here. Once I feel like I've got it pretty covered, I'm going to go over the tops like this. If you've got any left on here, you can take your little stick, scrape it off, and put it right back into your torch paste container. So now it's time to let this dry. What I like to do is just let it sit for just a beat, just to make sure I feel like everything's covered. And then we're going to remove our stencil right away and then let it fully dry without the stencil on there. Then I'm going to find a corner and just carefully peel this back. I'm kind of rocking it back and forth. And we're going to grab our weeding tool again and get rid of any of these little innard pieces. What I like to do is make sure that when you're going to pick it up, you are going almost parallel with the wood. Don't go down at it like Captain Hook, but parallel, and that will make it so you don't make any punctures in your wood. So here for this D, I'm just going to kind of push it slightly sideways and peel that up. Now I'm just going to set this to the side, let it dry. I like to give it about 5 to 10 minutes.
And then to actually do the wood burning, you're going to need a high heat gun. One of my biggest questions I get in the comments when I do these types of projects is, can I use my embellishing gun? And the truth is you cannot, because torch paste needs a high heat temperature. That's either 400 degrees Celsius or 775 degrees Fahrenheit to make it work. So this is one that I got on Amazon. It's relatively inexpensive. It has different tips and nozzles that can come on and off. It has a really easy little thing at the back, and it is a just regular plug-in. So definitely if you're planning on wood burning, you can grab this as well as the torch paste on Amazon. It can get to you pretty quick. They're available at other places too, but that high temp heat gun is definitely a must-have with the wood burning.
And a couple quick safety notes before we get into the wood burning. I like to protect my hands. I use my high heat sublimation gloves from Amazon. I also wear eye protectant, and I also do it outside outside to make sure that I am in a super well ventilated space for any of the chemicals.
I also have added to my heat gun this little nozzle just so it is able to give me more of a controlled area so I can really point to where I want to burn instead of shooting the hot air everywhere. So for this particular one, I'm going to turn it on, turn the fan on, we're going to warm it up, and then we're going to start going.
Heat guns, especially high heat ones, are not like hair dryers where it is an instant heat up. So you're going to want to turn it on, get it going, and continually move it over your wood until you start seeing those areas start to burn. You don't want to camp out in any one specific area because that is going to create a larger burn than what you are going for. So I like to move it around as it's warming up, and then you will see that it is starting to create the burned effect. This whole process probably took me about 15 minutes just because I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any burned areas, but just keep that in mind that right when you turn it on, don't think that you did it wrong if it doesn't heat up. You got to give it probably 8 to 10 minutes to really warm up. And I also wanted to make sure that I started at a lower setting and didn't start too high for the scorching as well. But once you start to see these change, it will go from the opaque orange to darker orange to the burning, and you'll be able to see what has been fully burnt or what still needs to be burned. So work your way through, take your time, and enjoy the process because it's cool to see it all burn.
Ta-da! This is all done and ready to go. I love how rustic this looks. It doesn't look like I just made it. It looks like it is a little vintage, and I really like the unfinished wood. Now let me show you how you can customize the smaller box to say whatever you want. It doesn't have to say what my SVG does.
The font that I used is a free font that you can download online. So you can download the font, add it to your machine, and then if you added the font during the time that your Cricut application was open and it's not showing up, you can close Cricut, Design Space, and then go back in. So our next step is to ungroup things and figure out what we want to change. So I want to leave property of, but I do want to change this Stanley Manufacturing Co. So I'm going to select it all and just hit delete. Then I'm going to be able to grab text, go up to this and select my font, which I've already saved over here. Then I'm also going to change this up here to black just so it kind of blends in. And then I can tweak this based on the size of the text, but this actually looks pretty good. If you want to tweak it, you can change the font size up here, or you can drag from the corner. Then here at the bottom, I don't want it to say Sterling, Illinois. I want it to say Chicago, but you could do whatever. Same thing, but this one, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And then all you need to do is select all of these elements. So just drag and across, and I'm going to do a line up here and a line center horizontally. Here's all of this. We're going to attach again, click make, and repeat the exact same process that we did with the first one.
If you want to add a stain to your surface, now is the time to do it after you have done the wood burning, because we don't want to heat up that stained surface. Like I mentioned before, we're going to keep it unfinished to burn it, but now is when you can do that. Now these ones that are in my craft space, I don't seal because they are fine. They're inside, they're good to go. If you are doing like a cutting board or a wood spoon, you're definitely going to want to seal those types of things. And I like to use either Howard's, or Torch Paste has also come out with their own like mineral oil, and when you use the Torch Paste one, it makes it food safe. So just make sure you're following the instructions to ensure that it's food safe, but that's a nice way to gift items, especially with wedding season, bridal showers, all the things coming up, housewarmings. It's a nice gift to do.
It's as easy as just squirting it on and then using a clean lint-free rag to wipe it into the wood. You can leave it from 1 hour up to overnight, and I just like to check the back and follow the instructions on the container, and then you're good to go. I really like the unfinished wood. It kind of adds to the old vintage vibe I'm going for, but you could absolutely stain this, paint it, you could do a whitewash, a gray wash, and then you could seal it if you want. I love the way that the wood burning turns out, and I also like that it's a little uneven because that just adds to the character.
And there you have it. I hope you loved this first Whit Tip workshop. Like I said, I was so excited to share this with you guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know down below too one of your favorite tips that you learned today, and I hope I can continue this. If you like this series, be sure to head down to the comments and let me know what you would like to see next in the next Whit Tip workshop. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe if you're new so you don't miss any future videos. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!